Hello everyone, my name is Stephanie Miller and I am here with Team Edge today to present to you an exciting new haircut that we like to call the Sci-Fi. This haircut is going to be a low weight with taper. It's an exciting haircut because it's very versatile in the way that you can wear it, and it's a new cutting edge trend that you'll often see when you're working behind the chair within your stores. We have our live model here. I'm super excited to have him join us today. We're going to begin doing our haircut by utilizing our American Pro Prep and Prime Tonic. The Prep and Prime Tonic is going to help us create nice clean sections within our haircut. The very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to want to section out this top working area. I'm going to utilize a horseshoe section in order to do this. In order to make this horseshoe sectioning, I'm going to really look at the shape of the head, utilizing where the hairline starts to round here at the recession into the parietal ridge. I create one side, I come around my section. I'm going to reach for a comb and a clip, and I'm going to clip that up and away into place. I'm going to come to my other side. We're just going to meet that horseshoe back in the middle. We're going to clip this top working area up and away. Nice and neat. Clean sectioning is always the best. Now that I have my live model sectioned into a horseshoe within the top working area, we've turned around as we're going to begin our haircut starting at 6 o'clock, also known as the nape. At 6 o'clock, I've placed my 4 guard on top of my clippers. To hold my clippers, I'm going to pinch them between my thumb and my index finger while gently resting the rest of my fingers on the back of my clipper. To begin cutting, we're going to be what we call here at Sport Clips using the scissor technique. I'm going to pretend that my arms are a giant pair of scissors. As I bring my clipper up, I'm going to be feeding that hair into my comb into one nice fluid motion. I will start here at 6 o'clock. I am making sure that I am keeping my section well below my occipital in order to maintain that bit of a weight line. You can see as well, because of my client having these growth patterns here at the crown, this type of hairline or sectioning is going to bear the most fruit for us. That weight is going to help preserve. I'm going to start from 6 o'clock, moving to 5 o'clock, using that scissor technique to remove the weight, remove the hair. Keeping that low below the occipital. From 5 o'clock, I'm going to move to 4 o'clock. You can see with that scissor technique, we're doing nice intentional motions. Once we reach 4 o'clock, we come around to the side of the head, keeping that low weighted angle. And we're going to only go to about 1 finger above the ear. The goal is to keep that bit of a weight line while we're following the shape of the head. And if you miss a hair, we're gonna just come back, that's okay. We can do the scissor technique again and just repeat that section so we've got that nice little bit of a weight line. Now, once we've done from 6 o'clock all the way to 3 o'clock and we've maintained that bit of a weight line, we're going to come back to 6 o'clock and we're going to repeat our same steps on the other side. Using that scissor technique, feeding the hair through. We're gonna do 6 o'clock and then we're gonna move to 7 o'clock, being very intentional with our motions. 6 to 7 as we come into 8 o'clock. And we're going to continue to do that scissor technique, maintaining only 1 finger length above the ear. Using the scissor technique and the comb is a great way to say, hey, we don't want to bring our weight line up any higher. So if you're maintaining your comb here around the occipital or here at the sides, only 1 finger length above the ear, then that way you know we're not moving that line up any higher than we want it to be. Once you've completed utilizing that 4 around the sides, we're ready to begin working on our taper. I really love to utilize the skip guard method for this portion. So now that we've just done a 4 around our sides, we're going to be reaching for our 2 guard now. And because I love to have a game plan and stay nice and organized, I'm going to continue to follow my same step from before within the nape, starting at 6 o'clock. As I do my 2, I'm only going to bring my 2 up until just below the occipital. I want to make sure that I'm still leaving a bit of this 4 guard. And as I bring my 2, I'm going to be using what we call anchor and pivot. I'm going to anchor my 2, and as I reach below my occipital portion, I'm going to pivot out my clippers, and that's going to create a nice smooth transition from that 2 up and into the 4. I start at 6 o'clock and I'm going to be working my way out to 8 o'clock, anchoring and pivoting. You can see by using our anchor and pivot, we're getting a nice transition. And once I go from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock, we can now go back to 6 o'clock and we're going to do 6 o'clock to 4 o'clock on our right side. Anchor and pivot, anchor and pivot, anchor and pivot, getting that nice transition. And so now that we've done our 0 into our 2, we're already starting to see a nice tapered look here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove my guard and I'm going to do a 0. We're going to do our 0 from the bottom of our hairline right up until we see the bottom of our earlobes there. We're just going to take off this little bit. We're going to bring the 0 up into the bottom of our natural hairline. Still utilizing that same pivot technique. Nice gentle motions to remove this hair. Starting at 6 o'clock, you see I'm going to work my way out to 8 o'clock on my left side, and then I'm gonna go back to 6 o'clock, and I'm gonna work out to 4 o'clock on my right. Just comb that extra hair away. And now that I've done my 4, into my 2, into my 0, I'm ready to get that 1. As I go in with my 1 guard, I'm going to want to, instead of holding my clippers horizontally, I'm going to be turning them at a slight angle. And I'm going to utilize this angle because it's going to help me fade the hair with a much more softer blend, so I don't have to go back in and do as much hard work later on. And repeating those same steps as always, I'm going to start at 6 o'clock, working my way out to 8 o'clock. And sometimes your client's gonna have fun growth patterns, such as a fun little cowlick like this. It's okay if you've gotta turn your clippers upside down in order to hit that little area. Sometimes you gotta be flexible. Another great thing you can do with that cowlick area is utilize your comb to over direct those hairs, and then we can get them. Next, now that we've done that 1 and we've already got that 2 there, we're gonna open the lever on our 1 and we're gonna continue to tap that line out. Keeping our clipper at an angle. Those nice pivot motions as you continue to work your way up to that occipital. Once again, following your game plan. Maintaining that pivot motion and keeping our clippers at an angle. And now that we've just completed working through the sides and top, I've taken the comb out of my top working area and I'm gonna let the hair rest down at its natural fall. We've already worked some of our American Crew Prep and Prime Tonic throughout the top. I'm going to now wet the hair down. Because my client has a wonderful growth pattern here at his crown and has a cowlick that really just determines the direction of the hair and where it's going, I want to let the hair go at its natural fall. So that way I'm going to be cutting the hair where it actually lives. And then in the end, we won't be giving our client what I love to call a maintenance issue, which is an area that he's going to have to upkeep every single day in order to maintain style. I'm going to be working water through as I'm going to be scissor cutting the sides and back. I have my 4 from below. That 4 is going to become my guide for my sides. And I'm going to separate out my front working area so that way I don't cut that front working area any shorter than we want it to be. I'm going to create a nice diagonal back section. I'm going to be cutting this portion palm to palm. We can see I've got my guide from my 4 below as well as the length that I'm looking to take above. I'm going to be holding this at a slight diagonal back or a lower 45-degree angle as well, and cut that palm to palm. After I make my cut, I'm going to drop my section, and I always love to comb and check for response and see how we did. That's looking awfully nice. I'm going to take my next diagonal back section, utilizing my 4 below as a guide, cutting at a lower 45-degree angle, palm to palm. I'm going to drop that. I'm going to comb and check for response. We're looking good. I'm going to continue following my diagonal back sections from 2 o'clock until I reach 6 o'clock in the middle back. I'm keeping my angles at a diagonal backwards, and I'm maintaining my lower 45 finger angle so as not to create square layers throughout the head. We're keeping that nice diagonal back. It's very important not to raise that angle up too high, so that way we don't cut out our weight line. We're able to maintain that nice shape throughout our haircut. Of course, we're going to comb that, check for response. And as you move towards the back of the head, those diagonal back sections will start looking a little bit more vertical. Using that 4 from below as the guide. Maintaining that weight line. And of course, we're going to comb that and check that for a response, making sure that that's shaping up exactly how we want it to. And as I come to 6 o'clock, turn please, we have a section that's nearly vertical, but we still want to maintain that 45-degree angle. If you've got to get comfy, if you've got to squat a little bit, do that, so that way you can stay right in front of your section. Remember, we want to maintain that nice body posture, that neutral wrist position. And of course, we want to comb that and check that for response, just to make sure it's maintaining that shape and it's laying exactly how we want it to. And of course, not going too short, that crown's wanting to pop up on us. A little bit more. And once you repeat from 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock, we're going to go ahead and we're going to repeat that on the opposite side of the head. Now, this is going to be our opposite side, so sometimes the opposite side gets a little bit funky. We want to make sure we've got that nice even saturation throughout. So if you've got to pick up your water bottle and resaturate the hair, go ahead and do that. You want that nice even saturation so that way the cut looks even throughout, because if you don't, remember that wet hair responds differently. It's got that different elasticity. So when you get to the refining of your haircut, the very end when you're ready to detail, we can see that choppiness, we can see that pieciness throughout. So I've re-wet my client here, and I'm maintaining the same thing with those diagonal backward sections. Utilizing my 4 from below as a guide, still cutting palm to palm. Maintaining that lower 45-degree angle. I'm going to drop that, comb check for response. Take our next diagonal back section. Utilizing our 4 from below as our guide, keeping that lower 45-degree angle, palm to palm. We're gonna comb that, check for response. That's looking great. We're shaping up nicely. And we're gonna continue taking those diagonal back sections as we follow the round of the head, creating that nice shape. There's our 4 from below. Follow that all the way up. And comb, check for response. How's that looking for you guys? Can everyone see that okay? Awesome. And once again, taking those diagonal backward sections. Making sure that you're always able to see your guide from your previous section. If you're ever unsure, you can always use your scissors, push that hair away. There's our guide, nice and clean. Follow that right through there. If you don't see your guide, it's better to measure twice and cut once. So drop your section and then recomb it so that way you're able to see your guide and get a nice smooth cut. And as we're coming around to 6 o'clock, those diagonal backward sections are going to be getting a little bit more vertical. If you can't see your guide, it's okay. We're going to recomb that section. There's our 4 from below, and we're going to follow that lower 45-degree angle all the way until we reach our 6 o'clock. And of course, we're combing and checking that for response. And here she is, our 6 o'clock section on the other side. 4 o'clock from below, keeping that diagonal back angle, that lower 45 angle. We're gonna comb that and check that for a response. And you can see now that we've done both sides by keeping that lower 45-degree angle for our client who has such a pronounced cowlick and a crown area. We're really able to give them this nice taper here throughout the nape area, but maintain that length where we really need it to help give him some form of a shape and a style that he can take with him outside of the store. And as we finish up that scissor portion around the sides, we're ready to move into the top. And now that we've completed the sides and backs so far, we're ready to move into cutting our top working area. We've already have our Prep and Prime tonic in there, so I'm just going to re-wet the top slightly. I'm going to be starting here at 6 o'clock. Picking up that very top portion of my back working area. And if you will see, you've got that length there from the 4 from our low weight blend that we were utilizing before. That's going to become our guide for the length on top. Now you have 2 options for cutting this. You can go straight across, but for today, I'm going to be turning my scissors up and over, and I'm going to be doing a nice point cut throughout the top. Because my client here has fine hair, that point cutting is going to help give us a nice softer texture and more of a diffused look. Once I work the middle center, I'm going to take my next section outwards, and I'm going to work from the middle all the way out, continuing to point cut. And I'm going to comb that and check for response. That's looking great. I'm going to take my next horizontal section across the top, comb straight up to 90 degrees, double check for my guide. There it is right there, doing my deep point cutting. that nice diffused textured look. Once I work through the middle to the left, I'm going to take the middle to the right, following that deep point cutting until we reach the round of the head. I'm going to comb and check for response. Going to take my next section, moving towards the front hairline. Once I work my middle to the left, I come back and I do my middle to the right. Because my client has a very distinct side part, I do my middle to the left, but I don't go into the round of the head because I'm preserving that shape, I'm preserving that part. But of course, we have to have room for flexibility. So depending on where your client's part sits, whether it be on the left side of the head or on the right side of the head, you might very well possibly raise it up to 90 degrees and cut to the left side to blend to the round, as well as go to the right side to blend to the round. So once again, we have to have room for that flexibility, right? It's not always a one-size-fits-all solution when we're working behind the chair. And we're still working with our point cutting while we're going into the round of the head. I always like to comb, check for response after each section. Is that hair responding the way that we want it to? As we reach this front hairline, I'm going to slightly over direct backwards to help preserve the length. And we work out to the right with our slight over directing backwards. And we could clearly see here the guide from our top working area and the guide from our sides and back. And we're just gonna point cut that, drop it. We're gonna comb it and check for response. And you can see here we've got this nice feathering going on within our haircut. And now that we've reached this portion, we're ready to do the fun part. We're ready to cut that front working area and to blend. Now, as we're ready to tidy up that front working area, this is always a great spot to double check in with your client, just to make sure that you're still on the same page as when you came up with your original game plan. Very often as we're cutting behind the chair, we can tend to go straight across that eyebrow. But because our client here really likes to part it to the side, we're gonna be cutting this front hairline at a slight diagonal back angle. We're going to angle our hands, cutting palm to palm. Starting towards the middle and working towards the outside corner of the eye. Don't cut past your second knuckle. Once you reach that point of your second knuckle, you're going to drop the hair, grab another section, maintaining that slight diagonal back angle. You're gonna drop, check for response. Because of that universal rule, short hair pushes long hair. By cutting at that diagonal back angle, we're able to maintain this really nice flowy movement throughout that top portion of this haircut, which is gonna really play in well for us when we choose the styling product that we're gonna utilize to bring the most out of that natural texture that we put in there. Once you get that determined length that we're gonna be at for our client, we're really ready to move in to the detailing portion of our haircut. So because I did my clipper cutting around the sides and back and that went up into my scissor cutting, I'm going to be reaching for my clippers again using what's called an upcutting technique. With our upcutting technique, I have my client turn around. And we're gonna be reaching here at the weight line of the head. I'm gonna be turning my blending comb horizontal, and instead of going horizontally across my blending comb, we're going to be taking slight upwards motions with our section. And when we do this, this is gonna create a much softer blend. We're moving our cutting comb up with our section. And you always comb and check for response. You wanna make sure that what you did effectively worked before we move on to that next section. We start from 6 o'clock and we're gonna work all the way to 12 on the right side. We're just doing it on the very, very last ends of the hair. As we do this, you'll notice I'm lifting to slightly over direct as I'm not going into the haircut. I'm not going into the round. All of our main cutting has already been done. So at this portion, we're just detailing, we're just refining, we're just touching up that blend. Very, very subtle, once again, to just dust those ends, because if we were to go into the haircut holding our blending comb horizontally, we could end up completely cutting out those shapes that we just worked so hard to put in there. So once again, we're gonna insert our blending comb, bring it out to just the ends, and we're gonna uppercut those. Once you've done 6 to 12 and we think that that looks good, we're ready to go back and do 6 to 12 on the other side. Remember to always comb, check for response. How's that looking? How are we doing? I think we're doing good. All right, and now that we've done between 6 to 12 on the right and we went back and did 6 to 12 on the left, now we're ready to grab our trimmers and do our final detailing around our perimeter and nape. We're gonna have our client look all the way down. We really tapered this, so we really took it all the way down to 0. But that doesn't mean your client's not gonna have 1 or 2 little hairs that are left around the sides and back. We're gonna go ahead and square this up for this young gentleman around the sides. And it's really awesome too, because you can utilize a taper comb or even your cutting comb. This is gonna be about the width of a half guard, so you can get your comb in there, really over direct that cowlick to the side, so that way you can run your trimmers over that and get that cowlick nice and tapered and cleaned up for your client. Give them a nice bit of life out of the haircut that you just gave them. We're gonna step to the side and we're gonna do that on both sides of our haircut for our client. And then we are able to come back and around the corner to taper around the ear, or to clean up our sides and back around the ear. It's always a great idea to ask the client how short we want those sideburns to live. Our greatest recommend is to do medium length or long. So we're gonna be right here about the tragus of the ear, halfway. As we work up and around the ear, we're gonna wanna do this in 2 crescent half moon shapes. And now that we've worked around our back and nape line, we're ready to do our sides and around the ear. As we determine the length of the sideburn, this is a great place, once again, to check in with your client, make sure you guys are still on the same page. We always recommend cutting our sideburns to at least mid-ear, or at that point that we call the tragus, which is this little lobe inside the ear. Always, you can also do a longer sideburns, but we really don't recommend taking them all the way up to the top of the ear anymore. This tends to be more of an outdated trend and technique. So remember, you're the pro, you're the professional. This is a great area for you to recommend what you think looks best for a sideburn as well, especially if your client's unsure. After you cut the length of the sideburn, we're ready to go in our half moon up and around the ear. We start here and at 3 o'clock and work our way up to 12 o'clock, and then we want to stop. Then we're going to come and get that ear out of the way, and we're going to start over here at 9 o'clock and work our way up to 12 o'clock. We always like to take the half moon sections as we work around the ear because it's going to keep us from putting a hole in there or a giant gap. Once you've taken that length off, I always like to take my comb and I place my comb and tilt that at a slight angle. That's going to let me taper that hair at the sideburn a little bit more. Get that tucked in nice and tidy, and it's going to give the client an extra day or 2 out of their haircut, and it's a way to make yourself even more valuable. I'm going to do the same thing right here above the ear, and you can see we've got just a couple of hairs right here that I'm going to taper for us. And we're going to have our client turn all the way towards me. And now that we've worked our way around the right side of the head at 3 o'clock, I've made my way over here to 9 o'clock, and we're going to do the same. Going to take this length here to mid-ear. Insert my comb to taper. Half moon at 3 o'clock. Fold the ear, and I'm going to do another half moon from 9 to 12. Keeping myself from putting a nice little gap in around the ear. And then of course I'm going to utilize my comb to taper all these little hairs that tend to get away from us. Oh no, we missed a hair. That's okay, we can always go back and get it. Nice and cleaned up. All right, now I've turned my client back around to the front. As we've done the sides and back with our trimmer, he's looking nice and all put together. We're ready to style for him. Because my client tends to have this fine hair, I'm gonna wanna work a little bit of American Crew Tech Series Texture Foam in. It's great for us having an alternative because so many of our young gentlemen that are coming into the store are utilizing the mousses of the 80s and whatever their mama has at home. So the texture foam is a great alternative for these young gentlemen because they can have their own product, something that's specifically targeted for their needs. So that texture foam is going to go in there for the fine hair, help work a little bit of grit, a little bit of volume in there, and help me have some pliable movement. I'm gonna rough dry. So my texture foam did a wonderful job helping me set this stage. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back in and I'm gonna reach for a little bit of our whip from American Crew. Can you hold that for me?
Yes, yes, Mom.
So I'm going to be utilizing a little bit of our American Crew whip to go right over the top of that texture foam. A little goes a long way. That texture foam really just helps set that place in shape, and then this whip is going to help hug it to allow him to achieve this nice, gentle control throughout the rest of his day and look great while he's in school and at practice and beyond. Thank you so much for joining me today as we completed our sci-fi haircut. It was such a good time hanging out with you all today, and I look forward to sharing more tips and tricks like this with you in the future. Bye, have a great day.